Hi, I'm Tariq Fadel, and we are turning the table today on stories from the NNI to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the National Nanotechnology Initiative. I'll be interviewing Dr. Lisa Friedersdorf, Director of the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office, also called the NNCO. To tell you a little bit more about myself, I am the Assistant Director of the Mobile Center for Cancer Nanomedicine, a research center within the Koch Institute for Integrative Cancer Research at MIT. The Research Center brings together what has been an extremely active, multidisciplinary community of interest in nanomedicine at the institute level to focus on grand challenges in cancer detection, treatment, and monitoring. Before joining MIT, I was myself part of the NNCO gang as a staff scientist supporting the coordination office, so it's good to be back. So today I'm pleased to be chatting with Dr. Lisa Friedersdorf to learn more about what she has planned to celebrate the NNI. Lisa has been involved in nanotechnology for over 25 years, with a particular interest in advancing technology commercialization through university, industry, government collaborations. She's a strong advocate for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education, and has over 2 decades of experience teaching at both university and high school levels. Prior to joining the NNCO, Lisa held a number of positions at the intersection of academia, industry, and government. Additionally, Lisa has been active in the startup ecosystem for many years, assisting small companies with business development and access to resources and vetting emerging technologies for investors. Lisa, can you tell us a little bit more about this anniversary?
It's been 15 years since the National Nanotechnology, or the NNI, was signed into law in the 21st Century Nanotechnology Research and Development Act. To celebrate the 15-year anniversary, NNCO will be exploring the extraordinary advances enabled by this collective effort, the impacts these discoveries are having on society, and what lies ahead. For example, we're planning a series of podcasts that will showcase experts from academia, government, and industry who will provide their perspective on key research advances in nanotechnology and how the NNI has changed the nanotechnology landscape. Depending on their area of expertise, these experts will also present key nanotechnology applications and their impacts on society, and of course, compelling questions that remain to be addressed. We've already started to record some of these podcasts, and it's been a lot of fun. When I talk to folks, they might be a little bit hesitant at first, but when I start asking them questions, what do you know now that you didn't know 15 years ago? Once people start thinking about, oh gosh, yeah, when I was doing this research 10 years ago, I didn't know this, and this. And I think that looking at the advances through the researcher's eyes, through the developer's eyes, through the people who are bringing these ideas to market, it's going to be a compelling story.
Thanks, Lisa. This is really exciting. Under the NNI, several federal agencies have really built a robust set of infrastructure or R&D user facilities and centers as networks to create an extensive resource for outside users. One question I have for you is, during the past 15 years, can you tell us about the role of this infrastructure in nanotechnology advances?
In preparing for this anniversary, I've spent a lot of time looking at some of the early documents and the arguments that were put forward for even establishing a national initiative in this area. And one of the key needs that was identified at that time was the need for access to instrumentation that is cutting edge, that is too costly for a single research group or even a single institution in some cases to buy what they need. And I think that this is one of the critical areas that the NNI has developed over the past 15 years. If you look at the user facilities that have been developed under the NSF, where universities have facilities that are open to other researchers. And this infrastructure has really enabled researchers to collaborate, to access tools to make materials, to make devices, and to characterize these materials. There's also user facilities at the DOE National Labs, the Nanoscale Science Research Centers, NSRCs, and they provide access to cutting edge tools again that just wouldn't be possible for individual researchers to have. But they've also been incredibly useful for the commercialization of nanotechnology. Small companies that can have access to do, either early prototypes or characterization at the early stages of their company before they can afford their own tools, I think has really been valuable to the much broader community.
So I really wanted to talk about the commercial stuff, right? Because that's also something that's very much a really essential part of this initiative. And how do you think DNI helped foster the transfer of new technologies into products for commercial and public benefit?
So, Tark, as you know, this bridging between academia, government, industry is kind of where I've spent most of my career. And I think that, looking at how to take these advances and move them into the marketplace has been something that is really important to me and important to many of us in the NNI. The NNI fosters tech transfer, and as you said, it's a really important part of the initiative. It's one of the four goals, and there's a number of ways in which the NNI does this. The NNI agencies have SBIR and STTR programs that help support small businesses. The small businesses we talk to, the nanotechnology companies, are saying that this is a non-dilutive source of funds when they're just getting started. It's really can be impactful and either make or break a business. The I-Core programs by NSF and now several other agencies. Um, at the NNCO, we have a dedicated staff member who works with industry and tries to point them in the right direction at resources and opportunities that might benefit them. And we've also developed a webinar and podcast series aimed at really at sharing best practices among small and medium-sized companies, but really trying to find ways to help in any way that we can that's appropriate. So, Tarek, you've been involved in nanotechnology for a long time. Can you give me your perspective on what you're excited about? What have you seen nanotechnology be able to do? And maybe even more importantly, what are you most excited about going forward?
Thanks, Lisa. It's a new advanced material that you can use for aerospace and defense applications. There's also the advent of DNA-based information storage technology, where each gram of DNA could store 455 exabytes of data. And then finally, understanding the importance of new technologies and devices for early detection of cancer. This is something that's getting really hot right now. For example, detecting circulating tumor cells and the role they play in metastasis. And there's a lot of really good work that's being done in early detection. The thing that we have to consider, though, is it takes a long time to see these types of results emerge, and especially with a field like biotechnology, or the life cycle of a product takes a while to come out, and so I think we still have a lot of work to be done on that end, even though we're seeing all these great advances materialize and new fields emerge. I think we're still not quite at the inflection point, maybe right at the inflection point, and we're going to see a lot of great things happen in the near future.
I mean, you mentioned some of the products that we're seeing, mass market applications. I mean, we carry a supercomputer in our pocket, right? But so much of that device is enabled by nanotechnology. What I get most excited about is the fact that as our knowledge of nanotechnology advances, as our ability to, manipulate matter at this scale and develop new materials and new architectures, we're able to do things we couldn't do before. And those are the things that really excite me. I mean, looking at multifunctionality. So you have materials that are strong and lightweight, but maybe they also conduct electricity for de-icing on an aircraft wing, for instance. And that's a simple example. I mean, there's all kinds of really more complicated examples. One of the things that I get excited about is some of these sensor tattoos, being able to monitor heart rate, for instance, with a very lightweight, unobtrusive sensor, so that compliance for monitoring is much greater. But things like energy harvesting, having little teeny tiny silicon nanowires that take the vibration and turn it into an electrical signal. I mean, to charge your cell phone in your pocket. Those are things that aren't possible without nanotechnology, and I'm excited to see develop and change our world.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one example that I get really, all passionate and excited about is definitely, the recent FDA approval of a drug that basically harnessed a Nobel Prize winning discovery in nucleic acid and RNA. And they're able to actually use, a nanoparticle delivery system to achieve that. And so it goes back to the whole idea that this pervasive field called nanoscience or nanotechnology is really enabling new frontiers and fields to emerge on their own.
Thank you, and I appreciate your participating in this story from the NNI.
Thanks very much, Lisa. That was really a fun conversation.